Hey there. So, we've got 3 piles. Pick 1, pick 2, pick 3. I can't remember which camera does them in reverse and which doesn't. You'll notice that I sometimes list them backwards and sometimes don't. And it's because if I'm using the laptop camera versus the external camera. So, I believe this is pick 1. And I believe it appears first. Pick 2, pick 3. These are Palo Santo that I've burnt. And you can see my little ashtray over here. It got dumped and that's why they're all ashy. So it is what it is. We're going to do a reading on defense mechanisms. And the thing about defense mechanisms is you see through the lens of them, and there's all kinds of, egoic coping structures in place that are designed to help you not see it. It's the ways that we hide from ourselves, right? And I don't know, I'm just having to get into some really deep stuff within myself right now. And I don't think it's a way of lashing out, but that joke just kind of came in my mind when I was about to say that we're going to dig really deep in, and it's going to be blunt, and we're going to go right for it, and it's going to be something that your ego doesn't want to let you see. But if you're serious, like me, about facing yourself and learning about yourself and knowing who you are, and you want to uncover the ways that you hide from yourself, then you will use your own intuition, you'll decide, and then whatever pile you choose, you will take it seriously and you will reflect on the information. And you will surrender the want to push it away or deny it. You will try it on. You will humble yourself in order to see what it is that these cards are wanting you to see. And this is, we're asking for guidance from your highest self, okay? So this is the higher version of you that's not in the 3D, that it's not suffering behind the coping mechanism or the defense mechanism, and that can see the biggest picture of you, and that wants to show you, wants to free you. Okay? So for me personally, like, I've got this soul contract with a person, and it's been going on for years now, but like, the thing is, I've had few interactions with this person on a 3D level. Most of it's energetic and a lot of reflection on the times that I did interact with them. And it's basically like, it's taught me to love myself more, like based on how this person reacts towards my energy. It's been painful. It's been confusing, it's been frustrating, it's been heartbreaking, and the part of it that was the most frustrating for me wasn't that I couldn't get them to respond decently or act grown up or anything of that. It was that spirit was putting me towards it. That spirit kept telling me, yeah, you need to interact with this. Yeah, this is a soulmate. Yeah, this is someone that is important and significant. Yeah, look at this. Yeah, look at this. And to me, oh gosh. Now, I had already been led into a relationship by spirit that didn't work out, and that taught me a lot. So I was already disillusioned to the idea that spirit could lead us into dark places for our own good. I knew that. But like, this had just been ongoing for so many years that there were times where I was just like, this can't be real. Like, this cannot be the thing that you actually want me to use this situation to, like, why do I have to be tied to this? Like, what did I do in another lifetime? What, But to be honest, it is scraping me on level after level after layer after layer after layer after layer. And I'm kind of like in the phase of it where it's scraping me on a very deep level that has to do with like wounding that happened in my childhood. When is it not, right? Around not being recognized, really, not being recognized. Since my parents were in trauma and they were in survival, there wasn't a lot of, time for like, let's focus on Julie and let, like life wasn't about that for me growing up. Life was about living with two parents who were trying to survive their own traumatic experiences and me just being along for the ride. And there's a lot of things that can happen to a person during that, which is like, losing a sense of self, because my self didn't matter. It was more about how am I going to navigate this situation in order to survive what this is, because that's what's going on here. We need to survive. This is life and we're surviving. And there's a lot of like sticks thrown in the spokes. There's a lot of unexpected tragedy. There's a lot of scary stuff going on. There's just this like need to be someone useful to the others and do things that are useful for the others. And so that didn't leave a lot of like time or even knowing that it's a good idea to get to know myself. And that is what my adult spiritual journey has been about in a lot of ways. Doing shadow work has allowed me to get to know who I am, but like even on a very like kind of scraped level, there's still more for me to like there's still a part of me that's like sitting with pain of that having been the experience for me, that because that was the experience for me, that I've lived my whole life, with that as my vibration. And therefore there's never been another person that really like sat with me to get to know me on a deeper level. Besides my one talk therapist I had for many years, she was really great. But we didn't solve a lot of issues. She did help me prolong my life because she was someone who listened and cared. And that was like something I'd never had before. So that was filling a need that I felt I had, And then I have a cousin who is my age. And although we're not that close, like we are close and that like I could go to her, but like her life is very different from mine. And so we don't like stay in contact very much. And so generally overall, the spiritual path has seen me in a very isolated state for much of my life. And it's not that I don't get along with people or like people, because I do. But because I carried these wounds, there was never an opening for someone to know me really deeply or show me care in a deep way. Right? Because like even boyfriends that I got with earlier on, they were in trauma themselves. And then this last one, which was more than 3 years ago, he was in trauma himself, but he also like, there was no interest in me. It was just more like being there, like having experiences together. There was no real intimacy. So I'm kind of scraping into that place where I'm sitting with the wounding of not having had that and like being present with the pain of that. And I could never access that before. And maybe it was this sense of resilience that I needed and that I have, but I was utilizing it to survive. So like anytime, I would be rejected or something wouldn't work out or someone couldn't see my worth, I would just step back into my resilience and knowing like, well, I know I have worth. And it was just like this logical thing, right? I know I have worth. I've seen it in many other instances, so I'm going to trust that that's true. But that was that was actually a bypass on some pain that's been there, all along, that I'm just now getting to access. And it's through spirit bringing back my attention to this soul contract that I have with a person who also couldn't recognize me, because I recognized them right away as somebody significant to my soul, but they did reject me, and they did not seem any, like, the way that they dealt with me was through their own coping mechanisms and defense mechanisms, which were very shallow, like relating, which were manipulative, but like in a very covert, nice way, right? Like mask that says, I'm nice, I'm kind, you can trust me, I care, or I care enough that I'm not a threat. But like on actuality, like I feel like your psychic abilities are a threat to me, and I would like to conquer you, and I would like to take you down a notch, and I would like to make you feel insecure, and so I will undermine you in any way I can, in a covert way though, so that you don't notice and the people around me don't notice that I'm attacking somebody so innocent. It was that kind of thing like that I got from it. And so, like, of course, I was just like wanted out of the situation. It's just like, all right, someone is acting like that. Like there's no room to like have a relationship with somebody who's coping in those ways, really. But like on a soul level, I knew this was a significant person. I felt love in my heart for this person. So it was so confusing along the way. And sometimes Spirit would let me like get away and say, okay, yeah, you don't have to deal with this anymore. But then Spirit, it would be a while sometimes, but would bring it back up. So it's kind of like this contract that I have with this other person is to, I guess, utilize the interactions that we've had to recognize my own patterning, and so because I grew up in that situation where I didn't have a sense of self, and because I am tuned into my upper chakras before getting grounded into the lower chakras on earth, I knew my Christ consciousness, but I didn't know myself. So there was this very altruistic way of navigating life, which is pretty safe, right? It keeps you above karma a lot. But then I had to delve into my own karmas from other lifetimes, right? And like the backlog and the ancestry of my family line. And so I went there with my Christ consciousness, right? But without my full sense of self. And so learning about myself has been a matter of coming in from the top down to uncover layers of myself through mining in the coping mechanisms and defense mechanisms that I had established in order to survive up to that point. And so one of the people that I had to like deal with was this contract, and that particular contract, because of the way they are mimicking so much of how I grew up, that it poked me in a lot of places that was able to like get me to see some of those more rooted coping mechanisms and defense mechanisms, and one of them, or a Jenga tower of them, were around avoiding the pain of just not being seen, not being like the prize thing in the family when I was born. You know what I mean? Like we were homeless when I was born. My parents were living in the woods, and I was actually put in the care of one of my aunts in infancy when I was born. So there's this like separation wound, abandonment wound, and also this instability, all at the root of my life in this incarnation, and that really like made it hard to find out who I am. And so what I'm doing is, as I get through this pain of not being seen or valued for who I am right from birth, I am facing this first of all, this reality, right? Being humbled in that I don't really know myself, and being presented with an opportunity to get to know myself finally, and more thoroughly and more deeply, and to kind of like find out what I really want to do here, right? Because up until the point of when I'm not knowing myself fully, then what I want to do is a product of my environment, or what I know I have to do to survive, or what I know I have to do to work towards knowing who I am. So all of everything I've done up to this point is the process of working towards getting to know myself. And when I know myself most fully, right, because I know a lot of parts of me, but like this deep core who I am has been sort of like not accessed by me in my life yet, because of the wounding I had and because of the pain that I had. And so it's like, in order to avoid feeling the pain of it not being important to the people around me, I devalued it in myself as well, meaning I also didn't pay attention to it, because that's what my environment trained me to do. And so my decisions have all been made on the basis of like, I'm in process of getting to that. This is important for me to do until I get there, which is why you see me doing shadow work readings a lot, right? Because shadow work is what I do to get there, to the core of knowing who I really am and knowing myself on that deep level. So like, I know a lot about who, like my traits and what's important to me, and but like, if you were to ask me like why I came to Earth and what I really want to do here, I can only intellectually tell you what I think. But I knew all along that only being able to intellectually tell you what I think the answer is by no means knowing from my heart and feeling passionately driven towards the thing that I want to do. So there have been moments where my heart has been open and I had an inspired idea and I wanted to work towards it, but then my heart closed, like, not saying fully closed, right? But like closed back, so that I was no longer like accessing the energy I would need for that project to flow out of me, because it's a flow state project. So it was like, as I was getting closer, I was getting glimpsed on it so that I would be fulfilled enough to keep going towards it, right? Like, I've been fed. But it's sort of interesting, because when you look at dysfunctional relating, and you can see that what sometimes people do, parents can do this, it's a notorious symptom of relating between empath and narcissist, where the narcissist breadcrumbs the empath. Parents can breadcrumb their children into behaving a certain way or going down a certain path. And like, in actuality, it's probably as a symptom of the way that my structure has been built through the life that I lived. But like, it feels sometimes like I am being breadcrumbed. And I'm giggling about it now, but there have been times that I've been mad and cried about it, Because it's like, our own shadow seems to be the transportation that gets us to where we're going. But I do think that there are times where we can stay in our own patterns longer and miss opportunities. And I think that we are being urged sometimes and pushed, and there is certain timing for things. And I do think with that contract that I was in with this other person, the reason it's gone on so long is because there were different junctures over the years where this person was presented with opportunity to take a different path, to step out of their loops, right? And I don't have control over what they do, only they do. So I've been on like the backup plan the whole time, because they never stepped up to the opportunity in what it was to interact and collaborate. So even though there was an opportunity, I ended up on the backup plan of the soul contract, which dragged out. And thank goodness I've had resilience. And that's also why it felt like breadcrumbs, because a lot of times it was like, okay, well, this is such a big destiny. This is such a big opportunity for you as souls to complete this, that it's worth giving it another try. And so that's why Spirit would bring me back to it, because trust me, I've had a lot of conversations with Spirit about this. And at this point, it's kind of like I've been put in this position of like, well, you're going to have to trust that you can't know everything. And there are things that you don't know, and you're not going to know yet. And it's like, okay. It's like, this is the time to use my faith. So meanwhile, there are still things that I can be doing, right? Which is like sitting with this part of me. And I guess I was talking about it because like, as I started this reading, I felt a little raw part of me still here. And maybe like talking from within this raw part of me helps me strengthen that part of me, right? Because some of the things that would happen because I wasn't in touch with myself, but I was in touch with Christ consciousness, was that I would allow myself to, be mistreated for extended periods of time just by different people in my life, like, not having certain boundaries with people where I needed to like take space from them sooner than I did, given the way that I was being treated. However, because I was in Christ consciousness, in the knowledge that I had, in the knowing that I wanted to act out of Christ consciousness, I overrode that. And also that's the same reason why I would choose not to take vengeance or retaliate or things like that, because I just knew better. But it didn't mean that I was like fully embodying all those. Like, it didn't mean that I didn't have a matching wound to something that I was doing on an intellectual level. You know what I mean? Like, I still had to clear out the debris of the energies. But like, thank goodness that I have the knowledge to do it, because that meant I could take the high road when I did it. And that's what I've done. I've taken the high road. And I think that the soul contract that I had with a person is the person who's taking a low road, and they don't know it. I don't think they know it. They don't know that the reason they're so kind of bored and whatever is because they're dealing on a very shallow level. But when I look at them, like, they're very successful and grounded in the 3D, and that's something that I need to work towards, right? So it's a mutually beneficial thing. However, at this point, at this stage, like, I think the last interactions, like, were just energetic, and they were activating into woundings for them, whatever theirs is, and for me, that getting into that level of like just finally sitting with and being with the pain of not having been important enough to be considered, and yeah, rooted in the pain of my parents not being able to do that, but then it repeating with me doing that to my own self. And now I'm old enough and now I'm wise enough to be able to do that for myself. So this is what that is for me, right? Like, let's see what comes out. Maybe there's going to be something in here for me too. We shall see. So use your own intuition to decide 1, 2, or 3. We're going to start with pick one. Pick one. What defense mechanism are you operating in right now? I felt a change in the energy when I said, when this person doesn't know why they're bored. And so, if that didn't resonate, then that's just something that, maybe that person wouldn't let themselves see or whatever. All right, let's see what these say. I want to get the tarot deck as well. And I am really grateful for the soul contract, even though there have been times where I felt like I was haunted by it, where I felt victimized by it, where I felt like, I tried to write it off. I tried to go into my spiritual realm and say, I will never work with this person again. My spirit guides told me that it's very important that what happens, what energy is alchemized between me and this person is very significant. So they just kind of tried to tell me, like, you don't have the biggest picture view, and you're not going to right now. Okay, first let's look at these. 4 of Cups in reverse. Don't know what you got till it's gone. You never know what you got. You don't even know what you have given up. What is this? You might be holding on to something that is not in the highest good. You don't know it. You don't know there's a higher road for you. Maybe some Gemini energy here. The Lovers, Judgment in reverse. You're not looking at the consequences to acting how you're acting. You're taking the easy road. Maybe it's like I was talking about my resilience. It just happened to bypass whatever I was trying to not see. Like you might have a resilience spring trigger kind of thing, which isn't strength. Strength is slow and steady. Strength is I stand in this. I have dug to the depths and my roots reach down and support me. That is not that resilience spring. Resilience spring is reaction. This is kind of indicating that like you might appear strong, but it's not rooted in something that it could be. There's a potential for it, right? But perhaps you are sitting in worldly success and maybe it looks like you have a happy relationship and you're making good money and you're feeling content and stable and happy in life. But it's kind of like you missed something here. You missed the exalted road. You missed the higher road and you are using a coping mechanism to stay in this posture. So it seems like what you value is what people see. And down below the surface, you have such a fine-oiled machine that will support you in propping this up that you don't dig deeper. You don't dig deeper towards the roots. So this is going to be possibly an uncomfortable reading, okay? So bear with us. The worst thing you're going to feel is guilt and shame, okay? You can survive those, I promise you. I once sat in the bathtub for days and cried out shame. So you stay busy. You don't give yourself the time. You pop back up to overcome whatever it is that kind of that activated you in a wound. You're just like moving on. And you are maybe looking at it like, I'm resilient, this is a good thing. And it is. It really is a good skill and it will take you far and it will be helpful. However, we're talking about coping mechanisms and defense mechanisms. And this is talking about an opportunity and a high road that you didn't take. And that is because you were too busy in a resilience thing. And maybe you are feeling offended. When you're activated, you get offended. So you're taking it personal instead of taking it like it's a gift. A gift of some information that could help you free yourself if you were to be willing to dig deeper within yourself down to the roots. Okay? And you might have to sit with and be with some loss. And this could have been like just the loss of, like, remember what I was talking about in the introduction, the loss of the care and love that you wanted from your parents. How was it in your childhood home? What did you have to do to survive and cope? And how is that affecting how you operate today? Not every aspect of what you are dealing with is going to be mentioned in this reading. Okay? And you might even want to write this off because you're not really open to seeing this in yourself. You might be triggered already. You might be like, what the hell is this? You might be like saying things at the screen, trying to tell me off and like say, what do I know? And maybe attacking my character and all of that kind of stuff. And that's normal, okay? I'm going to tell you that's normal. I get triggered too. I know what it's like. The way that you're operating, because it's all through defense mechanism, because it's all rooted in the fact that you want to avoid feeling something, a loss, a pain, because it's that. You're missing the higher road. You're doing something in a deceptive way, okay? You're lying to yourself about it, and you might be lying to others. And you might think it's fine to lie to others. Maybe that's how you had to survive your childhood home. You would have gotten in trouble if you were honest about where you were all afternoon. You would have been beaten if you were honest about who broke the vase. You know, maybe deception has become a way of life, and maybe it's part of the way you're coping for a reason. Like, what is important to you? What's important to you? Why is it justified to use deception? Why are you so offensive when this wound gets poked? Do you lash out? Do you, like, what's happening in those moments? And why can you take it as a gift? Can you pause instead of getting busy? Pause and take it as a gift of a piece of information. Okay? Now, I would like to give you some positive affirmation kind of something. So let me grab this deck and ask this. What, Spirit, please tell me something that pick one is doing very well already that can help them with this situation. You have a higher self. It is prompting you. You do feel nudges. You probably even understand the importance of being responsible and not being deceptive and taking up your responsibilities and all this, because something guides you, but there's a certain trigger you have that makes it so you don't even listen to this part. But you do have access to this part. So think about the times when you're bored, when you're not triggered. What's the niggling that you get? You know? This higher self right here, this card is in reverse. See, if you put this upright, this higher self is going to take you up and show you a bigger picture view, but it might be step by step and you might not see the biggest picture view while you're taking the steps, right? Like you're going out of a mucky situation, so you got to just like follow your highest self, trust in your higher self. That's going to be felt in your heart. It'll make sense later, but take the steps. So if your higher self leads you into an interaction with somebody and they end up poking you and it hurts, offending you in some way, or lying to you, it's a mirror or it's a poke in something that hurts that needs to be tended to in you. Turn it all back into you and use it for your own highest good. Okay. Now, I have a feeling that because I'm being so direct, that's why I needed to be so vulnerable in the introduction of this video. So if you skipped the introduction and you're feeling really raw, just know I get it. This reading was meant to be raw and meant to be right to the point, and not for the faint of heart, but those willing to actually be with their heart. Okay, and I think that you are. And so, remember, it's just information to reflect on, and it's meant to be helpful. So only take what is helpful to you. And leave the rest for someone else, okay? All right, pick one. You might resonate with pick two as well. Might be worth taking a look. But now we're going to go on to pick two. Pick two, I described in the intro a very vulnerable state that I'm currently in, and also that this is going to be a very direct, sort of cutting to the root kind of reading. So I just want you to be aware of that. We're looking for defense mechanisms that are currently active in your life. Okay. Seven of Cups. It doesn't feel like you have a lot of options. You're kind of focused on the past, living in the past, really nostalgic. So this was upright, but it wanted to turn around. You don't know the point. What's the point, right? Okay. You're putting in a lot of effort towards something that was maybe like a childhood wish or a want or something that you decided that was valuable while you were in childhood. And, or maybe like something you wanted, like that happily ever after that you wanted, the things that you decided that everyone should achieve, like buying a home, having a career, having a great social network, you know. But what you're putting your focuses on and investing in is great and nice, and it probably keeps you afloat very well. It is lacking something, though, and you may know that too. Because you're doing it for a reason that isn't passionately driven, and that isn't enjoyable in the process. Right? Like when you're done your work day, thank goodness you're done your work day, kind of thing, right? Like, I remember one time I was talking to my cousin about not being able to like find anyone to relate to in what my interest in my spirituality and stuff. And she said, well, instead of like talking to all these people who are like not interested and reject you, like, why don't you just like turn it off? She's like, I'm a dental hygienist. I don't go around telling people how to clean their teeth when I'm not at work. And to me, in that moment, I was like, shut it off. Like I took her advice and I said, oh, thank you. I'll take it into consideration. But when I did, I was just like, this isn't something I'm turning on. This is I'm driven from within. This is like, there's nothing else that I would do. I'm not turning it on and off. Like it's like me. This is me, right? Like my interests, my curiosities, my inner urges, my longings, they're all spiritually focused. That's just who I am. And, so I wasn't able to like shut it off, but like, and I think that's beautiful, right? Like that's the life that I want. I want to be able to be me, you know, in what I do all the time. And we'll see what that is soon, right? Okay. So, what is the defense mechanism? Because you've been willing to compromise certain things, like trade-offs, right? It's like, what if there was a better trade-off? Would you just switch teams, kind of thing? Like, what you're doing isn't necessarily, it's like a means to an end kind of thing. It's like you're just trying to get somewhere, and maybe not necessarily enjoying the process, and compromising a lot of like options and ability to be passionate and like enjoy what you're doing more, and know that you do have options, like, because like maybe you haven't found the thing that you actually are interested in doing or are passionately driven toward. And if you watched my intro, it could be because like maybe you don't fully know yourself yet, right? Like maybe you've been sort of like going through life with this lens of like, this is what life is and this is how what I have to do to survive life. Now, the reason I think it's beautiful that we're doing these readings, and I think you're very brave, and I'm thankful that you're here. And I love the idea that like a bunch of us will be breaking down these like former structures that kept us operating. It's an operating system, right? It's like a way to navigate life that is an operating system, but that was based on things of the past, which is a lot of fear and lack. And that's actually not the world that we're going to be living in. You see our younger workforce, there's a lot of talk about how they don't really want to participate in what's been established already. And that is because we are going through an evolution of humanity. And so we're going to need to adjust and make it so that we're all going to be doing the thing that we are passionately driven for. And that when we take on the burden of it, that it's actually a more enjoyable process, and the journey is something that we're willing to take on, whether someone's there to support us or do it with us or not. Like, it's because it's intrinsically like who we are. And maybe some of us need to like try a few things to know by trial and error. What's the thing I want to do? What's the thing I don't want to do? And maybe the things that you learn about yourself in giving yourself options to try other things is also valuable for your journey forward. It's like you're going to take all the necessary ingredients. So, So when you have this very kind of rigid way of operating in life because you're going after a certain outcome, that outcome is based on something that it's pretty rigid because it was defined, and there's not a lot of room for this compromise in it. And the reason why you formulated it and the reason why you chose it, you might not be able to trust that, right? Because it is something from the past, and it is maybe something that you needed to do or needed to understand about life for the journey forward, but maybe not something that needed to define you. Because aren't you something or someone that is bigger than that? Don't you have a desire to indulge in an experiment and follow passionate means and like have that inner feeling fulfilled? Like, are you lying to yourself about having to do this? And like, who will you offend if you take the path that you end up on as a result of questioning these things? Who would be offended? So there's a lot of things to kind of break apart in yourself as you question all of these things for yourself. This reading is sort of saying like, hey, you might have stuck yourself on a certain path, and it might actually be limiting you, and that might be actually the reason why you don't feel exactly fulfilled, and you might actually be trying to fulfill somebody else's dreams and somebody else's wants, and there's something for you, and you might have to like fail a few times and try a few other things to get there. But like when you get there, you'll know, because it'll be like all of your efforts want to be put towards that, and you don't mind carrying the burden to get there. It's not like you're done at the end of your day and you're like, thank God that's over. Like, are you feeding yourself a story of like, I am virtuous because I'm willing to sacrifice in this way? Something that you are doing well that will help you moving forward on this journey. Immerse yourself in artistic and creative expression. Yeah. You kind of do, see, if we were to turn this Seven of Cups upright, there's some sort of artistic contemplation going on here. There's some sort of something that it wants to be created by you. And that's going to take a different approach to things. That's going to mean that you're listening to sort of like all the insights that you gain from trying different things. And that when you head out on your path, that you have everything you need to complete your journey, and that you're not looking back, you're not like waiting for somebody to catch up or waiting for somebody to tell you what to do, or, you know, it's like it's easy because you've already done the mountain part. You know what I mean? It's like now it's just like being in the process and going forward with all the things that I like, which is like maybe all the things that you had when you were doing the thing you were doing, but in addition, the internal fulfillment. The fully prepared and individualized, and not just mimicking what was expected of you, or continuing perpetuation of something, a cycle that is actually ready to be broken. Okay, so remember, this is just information to reflect on, and only take what is useful to you. Leave the rest for someone else. It's only meant to be helpful. Thank you for doing this good work, this like self-inquiry, which can be kind of difficult, and can really like dig into some tender places within ourselves that actually just need our love, you know? It's like as simple as that, just needs our love. All right, pick 3. See what the heck that is. Avoiding conflict, are we? We'll learn more about why. Hold on. You know, there may be a difficult conversation that needs to be had in order to repair some sort of relationship. There's definitely some change in the wind here, okay? So something's happened, and maybe like a conflict was avoided, but like also this sort of like harmony was avoided, right? Like now there's some sort of inner like turmoil, and this inner turmoil is going to help perpetuate things to change, right? Things had to change. Maybe this is something that you didn't think would change at all, something that was so solid and structured and established, but now it's kind of like you might have outgrown it, you could not be compatible with it anymore, and it's now like you have to be a beginner again. Now it's like, whoa, it's bringing you back to the childlike state where you are like a man. I want to say a man, but you could be a woman, right? Like this King of Pentacles energy is like an established adult who is independent and strong and confident. And then this Page of Cups is more like this beginner, childlike, open to love, heart on your sleeve, sometimes naive energy. And it's like that part of you was poked in this situation, right? Because I think that part of you couldn't stick up for themselves, possibly, for some of you. Or that part of you was locked away and not even being utilized. This willing to love part of you was either stifled into not being able to stick up for self, or was locked away and not even being utilized. And so for different people, it's different things, and like that's changing. That is changing as a result of this, whatever's just happened here. This way of functioning, it could just be a way of functioning, which is to avoid conflict, or to avoid either like risking conflict by getting into a loving relationship, or to avoid conflict by not sticking up for self. Inferiority, blocked heart, expectation, manners, suppressed. So there's a reason that conflict would be avoided, right? So either you were hurt at previous, right, and this blocked your heart, your expectations were not met. You were somehow concluding that you weren't good enough, right? And this closed your heart to a situation. Now, the result could have been that you decided to not open your heart to others anymore, or that you decided to be self-sacrificing to others and put them above you, right? So that you would also always, like, instead of fighting, just let them have their way. Or you were the person who went and said, you know, I'm not dealing with anybody who would have any, like, equality to me. I'm only dealing with people who are inferior to me. So if they make me feel inferior, I will bring them down. I absolutely will bring them down, because you suppressed a part of yourself. Both of these scenarios suppressed a part of themselves, and this is this love, this willingness to love part of self. Because one of you took the road of, like, I'm going to deny this part of me by not investing in a relationship and being loving. And the other said, I'm going to deny this part of me by not even acknowledging its needs or wants and just letting the other person have their way. So this little, I want to say little because it's a younger version of yourself, right, that got hurt, that was not treated fairly, that had some expectations that were not met, that was told to be polite above all. And that on the surface mattered more. It matters more what foot you put forward. It matters more that you're not impolite to others, right? So even this person who shut off their heart and decided not to get into loving relationships anymore was still maintaining a facade of being open to it. Because this suppressed version of self was still in there and still wanting this. But there was a lot of stuff going on to avoid it getting hurt. And so something we don't realize is when we've blocked our heart off, that means we're operating from our mind and our logic and what was expected of us and programmed into us. And that's a lot of what's in our shadow. And so when we're in our shadow and we're not heart-based, we end up hurting a lot of people, including ourselves. And maybe you know you're hurting yourself, and maybe you don't know you're hurting yourself, but you are. And maybe you know you're hurting other people, and maybe you're not aware that you're hurting yourself, and you should be aware. Because this is an imbalanced way of relating, okay? So what would want to happen here is, like, to love this part of yourself, to recognize what hurt this part of yourself at the root. Where was it? Did the parents not take that part of you's needs into consideration? Did someone actually stomp on your heart and use you and like pretend that they were more loving than they were? Did someone try to make you feel inferior? Or did someone literally devalue you and act like you were inferior? Did someone expect you to be polite to them even though that they were inconsiderate of you? Did someone say it was most important for you to just get along? That how things looked and what image you had was more important than anything? What's something that pick 3 is doing very well that will help them with this situation? We got 2 cards, actually. Perseverance. Dig in and see it through to completion. So now that we're like looking at these things right here, you have the ability to see things through. You really do. Like anyone who could deny themselves sticking up for themselves is got some really strong resolve. And anyone who could deny themselves being a loving person, also strong resolve. So like that strong resolve is now going to be applied to being present with this hurt part of you so that you can accept it and love that part of yourself, so you can let your heart, begin to open again. That you can realize that actually you in the equation matters, and that what you want, you don't have to cut yourself off from it for the betterment of others, because actually you end up hurting others. It's never ever beneficial to anybody when your heart is blocked. And you actually got 2 cards, and the other one is preparation. Get ready for big changes. So you know how to surf tumultuous situations, and your method is usually just to kind of step back, either get away from them or let the other person do their thing. But like things are going to change, and it's going to be within you. That wave of energy that usually like you kind of like navigate in a different way, it's going to be within you now. And so you have the skills to prepare for and be ready for this big change that's going to happen when you unblock your heart. Because when you unblock your heart, maybe there's going to be a mourning process. Maybe there's going to be this stuff where you kind of feel like a sense of loss, like for the time that you lost or the people that you lost due to the way that you were navigating life. And I want to say, nothing is actually lost, but it will feel like that. And so we'll honor that for yourself and accept and love the part of yourself that feels that, because this was your journey, and there are going to be some realizations through this, bringing up the suppressed parts of you that have been in pain. That's why your heart's blocked, because it's in pain and it wants to avoid feeling pain. So in order to unblock it, you're going to have to feel the pain. You're going to have to be with the pain, be present with the pain. You're old enough, you're strong enough, you're wise enough, and you just have to want to do it. So you just have to stop prioritizing the being, manners, that manners are more important. Stop prioritizing suppressing that part of yourself, and stop prioritizing the expectations of other people. Put yourself in the equation. Okay? You got this. This was the time for it to come into your awareness so that you could navigate through it. Awesome. Remember, it's just information to reflect on. It's meant to be helpful. So only take what is helpful to you and leave the rest. Thank you for doing this good work, and I will see you in the next one.